Let me tell you a story from long ago, from a time when the griots, our storytellers, our keepers of history, held the hearts of the people in their hands. It is a tale of a man named Dogo, whose voice could bring joy to the saddest soul, but whose life was marked by a curse. Dogo was born in the village of Kusoma, nestled between the great baobab trees and the winding Nzali River. His father had been a griot before him, as had his grandfather and his grandfather's father. Their songs carried the weight of history, binding generations together. It was said that a griot's voice could shake the earth, and Dogo's voice was among the finest Kusoma had ever known. From the time he was a boy, people gathered under the moonlit acacia tree to hear him sing. His voice was deep and rich like the river at dawn, smooth like shea butter, and full of the wisdom of elders. His words painted pictures of warriors long gone, of lovers who defied fate, of kingdoms that rose and fell. His stories were not just words, they were life itself. But then, one day, something happened. It was the night of the New Yam Festival, the grandest celebration in Kusoma. The drums thundered, the women danced in their brightly woven kaitenge cloth, and the men beat their djembe drums so fiercely that even the spirits of the ancestors must have risen to listen. Dogo was the guest of honor, as he always was. He stood before the crowd, his voice ready to pour out the first note of the song that would mark the night. The village hushed, the fire crackled, and the elders leaned forward. But as Dogo opened his mouth, his song stopped, right before the final verse. At first, the villagers laughed. "Ah, Dogo is playing with us," they chuckled, waiting for him to continue. But his lips would not move. His throat felt heavy, as if an unseen hand had stolen his last words. He tried again. Nothing. The laughter faded. Again and again, Dogo tried to finish his song, but the last verse would never come. Each time he performed after that night, the same thing happened. His voice would soar through the air, drawing people close, making hearts swell with emotion. But just as the song reached its climax, silence. The village whispered. Some said he had angered the ancestors. Others claimed he had disrespected Barko, the jealous griot who had once challenged him and lost. Some even believed he had been cursed by a wandering spirit, jealous of the beauty in his voice. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear: Dogo could no longer finish a song. Frustrated and ashamed, Dogo sought out the wisest people he could find. He went first to Elder Musa, the village's oldest man, who had lived through the reign of 3 kings. Musa listened carefully, his eyes heavy with years. "A man without his full voice," he said, "is like a river that stops flowing. Find where the water has been blocked, and you will find your answer." Dogo did not understand what the elder meant, but he did not question him. Instead, he went to Mama Rukia, the great healer of the western villages. She burned incense of hibiscus and frankincense, waved her hands over his throat, and listened to the wind. "The song is inside you," she said, "but it is afraid to leave." Dogo left confused. How could a song be afraid? His last hope was Baba Olumo, the blind storyteller who lived deep in the forest. Dogo traveled for 3 days, his feet aching, his heart heavy. When he finally reached Baba Olumo's hut, the old man greeted him as if he had been expecting him. "Ah, the griot who has lost his song," Baba Olumo murmured. "Sit. Tell me, why do you sing?" Dogo was taken aback. No one had ever asked him this before. He thought for a moment. "I sing because it is what I was born to do." Baba Olumo shook his head. "Number, that is what you were taught to do. Why do you sing?" Dogo did not know how to answer. The old man chuckled. "A griot must know why he sings. You have carried the songs of others, but where is your own song? The song that belongs only to you." Dogo felt something stir inside him, an unease, a longing. He had never created his own song. He had always sung the stories of others, honoring history, but never speaking his own truth. Baba Olumo reached out, placing his wrinkled hand over Dogo's heart. "The last verse is in here. Until you find it, your song will remain unfinished. Dogo returned to Kusoma, but he did not perform. Instead, he walked by the river, sat under the baobab trees, and listened. He listened to the voices of the children, the stories of the old women, the laughter of the young lovers. And then, one evening, as he sat alone, the words came to him. They were not the words of a king or a warrior. They were not of battles fought long ago. They were his own words, his own story. That night, under the full moon, Dogo stood before his people once more. The firelight danced in their eyes as he began to sing. His voice was as strong as ever, weaving through the air, wrapping around the hearts of those who listened. And then, as the song reached its final verse, the moment that had eluded him for so long, he sang it. The village gasped. The spell was broken. When he finished, silence filled the air. Then, the sound of thunderous applause rose, echoing through the trees. The people cheered, clapped, and some even wept. For the first time, they had not just heard a story. They had heard Dogo's story. Dogo continued to sing for many years, but now his songs were different. They still carried the wisdom of the past, but they also carried something else, the truth of his own soul. And so, my friends, the lesson is this. We can carry the stories of others, but until we find our own, we will always be incomplete. Our voices are gifts, but they are only truly free when they speak from the heart. This is the story of Dogo, the griot who once lost his voice, only to find it again where he least expected, in himself. And that, my friends, is a story worth telling.